Pain makes people angry. They demand change through their rage. And maybe we all thought the only way to get change was to demand it, to protest and riot in the streets, to burn it down to nothing. But where has all the fighting gotten us? War after war, and we keep fighting. So what if I told you that words possess a power that can never be killed? Ideas will outlive any human being. What if I told you the revolution is a conversation? Hello everyone, welcome back to The Revolution is a Conversation. I'm your host, Jaleesa, and today we're going to talk about food. And if you know me personally, you know that I am obsessed with food. It's one of my favorite topics, and I thought it would be a good way to kind of continue the conversation that we had in episode 1 regarding the beginning of the pandemic. And I think food just affects the world in so many ways that many of us aren't even aware of. And just to give some background on me and my food obsession, I guess, I am vegan, and I've been vegan for 4 years, and that's kind of where this journey started for me. And at the moment, I am an aspiring holistic nutritionist. It's what I am going to school for. And so everything I'm going to be sharing with you guys today kind of comes from a combination of my classes and personal research that I've done on my own. And I don't mean to turn anybody off by saying that I'm vegan. I'm not here to bash anybody or tell you that you're wrong for the way that you eat, because I do see both perspectives. So I hope that you will listen to this episode with an open mind. So to me, food is a big topic and an important one because it's something we all do every day. 3 times a day, we have to make a choice. What do we want to eat? And we're never taught how that choice affects others, how it affects the farmer who had to kill the animal, how it affects the animal itself, how it affects the planet. And I think we need to stop just passively eating and just eating for flavor. There's just so much that goes into food that's so important that I want to bring awareness to. So I want to start by just saying that we all have a huge responsibility when it comes to our food choices and how they impact the planet and the world. Factory farms cause a lot of damage. It's an animal rights issue, it's a human rights issue, it's an environmental issue. There's so much that goes into it that a lot of people aren't willing to really look at. People get really defensive about it, but it's the truth. And just look at it for what it is. I'm not bashing anybody for their choices, but I'm just asking you to look at everything that happens just so that you can eat meat. And I am not trying to say that everybody should be vegan. I know that for some people that doesn't seem like something that would fit their lifestyle, and it doesn't seem like something they would like, and that is okay. But there are more responsible ways to eat animal products and more sustainable ways to eat animal products, and that is local. Always make sure that your animal products are local. You should never eat an animal that wasn't raised in your state. So if you live in Reno, Nevada, we have the Great Basin Community Food Co-op, and all the meat there is either local or organic. So the only thing that we don't have that's local is chicken, but you can get pork or beef that was raised here in this state. And the only reason that they're not certified organic is because we don't have a separate slaughterhouse for organic raised animals. So all animals get slaughtered in the same place, and that's kind of what doesn't let them certify it organic. but that is always a much better choice, and there's always local eggs, local dairy. So really, every animal product can be found locally without factory farms, and that's really where the impact is. So I just want to make that distinction before we get deeper into the conversation, because it is kind of more the factory farm aspect of animal agriculture that could lead us into the next pandemic. And so that is why I say that meat eaters have a huge responsibility to make better choices if you don't feel like you could give up animal products, which is okay. And I think that's where vegans get a bad rep, because we kind of come after meat eaters and just say like global warming is your fault, and that's not entirely true. It's mostly factory farms that contribute to global warming, and choosing local products will always be a more sustainable choice and lower your carbon footprint. Whether it's local meat or local vegetables, local is always a better option than factory farms. Okay, so to really dive into this topic today and animal products and how they correlate to health pandemics. We've had pandemics before. We had the Spanish flu in 1918 through 1919. We had the Black Death in the 14th century, swine flu in 2009. And all of these diseases originated in non-human animals and then mutated to spread to humans, and then from human to human. And so the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have been warning about the next global outbreak and how they think it can come from an influenza A virus, which mutates in the way that I just described. And humans are very sensitive to these types of viruses just because of how they are constantly mutating. And so we currently have the perfect scenario for this virus to spread to humans because of factory farms. These animals are so tightly packed in small spaces, they can't even walk. They don't have any space, any wiggle room. So if one species was infected, well, at least one of the animals of the same species. So if we have, if we're in a pig factory and one pig gets sick, it can easily be transmitted to the rest of the pigs. And then from there, if the virus keeps mutating, it can pass to a human, which would most likely be a farmer, a factory farmer worker. And from here, it mutates to spread person to person. So then this factory farm worker goes home and spreads it to their family. And just really quick, my downstairs neighbor is hammering some stuff, and I don't know how to keep my mic from picking up those sounds, so I am so sorry if that is bugging you. But anyways, so with COVID-19, this disease is highly contagious, but its mortality rate has been lower than past viruses. So the avian flu, for example, had a mortality rate of almost 60% compared to the 1% of the coronavirus, except that it wasn't nearly as contagious as coronavirus. So we really want to prevent a new outbreak, because I guess the fear is that the next one will have the mortality rate of the avian flu with the transmission rate of the coronavirus, and that could potentially wipe us out. So just seeing how animal agriculture has had all these viruses arise, it's safe to assume that the next pandemic could emerge from it as well. And it could even be in existence between those animals right now. Before reaching humans, the swine flu was shown to exist in pigs for decades before it was able to mutate and pass to humans and then person to person. So I also want to point out that factory farms are super unsanitary, and so it just creates an ideal home for bacteria. And bacteria was the culprit behind the Black Death in the 14th century. So Due to all the spread of the bacteria between animals, they're fed tons of antibiotics. And this is causing bacteria to adapt and become resistant to antibiotics. So as they become immune to antibiotics, they pose a threat to us, because then humans could potentially get sick when they eat meat if the bacteria still exists in these animals because the antibiotics weren't able to kill them off. So, I just kind of wonder if we will look back at factory farms one day and just kind of feel the same regret that we do now when we look at wet markets, because wet markets are kind of where we believe the outbreak of SARS and coronavirus came from. So just something to think about. And I also just want to point out, as an aspiring holistic food nutritionist, the quality of your meat is what makes it healthy. And factory farms are focused on quantity and taking your money. They do not care about giving you quality product, which is super important for your health, as much as it is for the planet and for the animal, because local farmers treat their animals with dignity versus factory farms who treat them like they're nothing. And not to mention that factory farms don't really treat their employees with dignity either. And as I was reading an article, it was by the New York Times, called Pork Chops versus People, Coronavirus in an Iowa Meat Plant. And basically this article talks about overcrowded employees, just elbow to elbow as they work, and about 1,031 of the Tyson Food employees were infected. 3 of them passed away, and some are currently on ventilators. And Donald Trump even declared the meat supply a critical infrastructure, and so even though this plant was shut down, it quickly reopened due to the meat shortages. And that is kind of where I want to bring up that eating meat comes with responsibility, because that is what you're voting for, I guess. It's, if we would all make better choices around animal products, then this probably wouldn't have happened, because this isn't something we should be supporting, a plant that will reopen even though so many employees were infected and they could be potentially infecting the public, and it's all so messy. And I realized that it feels so much safer and comfortable to just ignore the reality of how cruel our meals can be. And I just think that we all have to stop ignoring it. What we eat and every choice that we make contributes to so much more. It's just a little piece of a much bigger picture that I just want to invite you guys to really take a look at. And so that just about sums up this episode. I do want to read a quote to you guys. It's more around the ethics of eating animal products. But before I close off this episode and read that quote for you guys, I just wanted to invite you guys to leave me a voicemail. If you have any questions, if you'd like to continue the conversation, really anything, I'd love to hear what you have to say and then attach your voice memo to my next episode. So the number is 775-525-1193. And you can also support me and this podcast by visiting my Patreon page. That would be patreon.com/therevolutionisaconversation. All right, so this quote is by David Duchovny, and it goes like this. You humans drink our milk. You eat the eggs of the chickens and the ducks. Isn't it enough for you? Isn't it enough that we give you our children and what's meant for our children? And if not, when is it enough? All you humans do is take from the earth and its beautiful creatures. And what do you give back? Nothing. I know humans consider it a grave insult to be called an animal. Well, I would never give a human the fine distinction of being called an animal, because an animal may kill to live, but an animal never lives to kill. Humans have to earn the right to be called an animal again. All right, well, thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2. I hope you guys liked it and you share with friends, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and I will talk to you guys soon.